Welcome to the Northeast Divide podcast. I'm your host, John, and I'm here with Anth. And we're also joined by a very special guest, Craig Buglass, who is a former kit designer for the Nike of all companies, plus many, many more. And we're here to discuss the kits that I suppose go across the Northeast Divide. Craig, thank you so much for joining us this evening. What got you into kit design originally? Because I think, we all kind of, fancy ourselves as amateur football kit designers. We're the first to complain when the football shirt isn't exactly what we're like, or we'll first say, well, this is what we could make it look like. So what got you into that, and kind of tell us a bit more about all of that stuff?
No worries. Well, I kind of got into it by default, really, because it's I'd studied to do photography and graphic design at South Tyneside College, and then when I was there was also part of the course was a fashion course, and all the girls were in the fashion course. So I thought, I fancy doing that. And I basically went home to tell my dad I was going to go and do fashion design. It was a classic Billy Elliot story where he was like, well, no son of mine's doing fashion. So that kind of made my mind up, and I went in the next day and signed up for fashion. So basically that was the start of it. And then I ended up doing a degree in men's fashion at Preston, and I did my master's at the Royal College of Art. And then from there started working for various different fashion brands, but one of the companies that had come in for us at the time was actually Adidas, and they wanted to take us on as one of their football kit designers. That's where you would start in their kind of organization. But I turned them down to actually go and work for Puma, which was literally across the road in a little German village called Herzogenaurach. And that was the start of it. And basically when you started a lot of these sports brands, they'll put you into team sports or football kit designs, because it's not, back in my day, it wasn't really regarded as the place to be really as a designer. But because I'm an avid football supporter, I was kind of like a pig in shit really. So it was great. And my first ever kit that I did was a Lazio kit. And then did all the training kit. And then after that, kind of went on from there. Then I was headhunted to go to Nike, and after that, the rest is history. So I've kind of, you've kind of seen all the kits and stuff that I've done. So that was it really. So that's how I kind of got into it. But if you were to ask like any of my colleagues, like within the fashion industry or within the clothing industry, if you like, probably football kits are not what I'm recognized for. It's probably more outerwear and more high-end fashion type stuff. But it's just over the years, I've always had a passion for it. So I've kind of dipped between the two. That's kind of how I got into it.
What's your favorite kit that you designed, Craig? I'm obviously Brazil 02's the one that sticks in the memory, I suppose, for a lot of people, because very successful side and very iconic kit. But if you had to single one out, what's your favorite that you'd go for?
It's probably got to be the Brazil kit, but it's not necessarily because of the design per se. What people don't realize is what actually happened at that moment in time, and what we actually managed to achieve with that kit was actually quite incredible, really. Because if you actually look at the kit itself and look at kits before that, it's completely different. So first of all, it was 2-layer. Second of all, it was made out of a woven fabric, so it's not like a stretch polyester. We also put a lot of technology into the concept behind it. We changed all the colors, we changed the badge. We did so much to those kits. And honestly speaking, these days, I'm not sure you would get away with being able to change that much at a given time. But we really went for it. So it's not only just the look of the kit and obviously what happened and the fact that they won the World Cup in it. It was more the fact that the journey we went on to actually create those kits was really quite different at the time. But then I've got a soft spot for the Arsenal kits when they went invincible as well. That was fond memories of that, and working with David Dean and Arsene Wenger at the time. And to be fair, David Dean's got to take the credit for the yellow kit because I'd actually designed them a grey one, and he threw it at us in a meeting that I was at. Like, yeah, we're not wearing grey. So luckily we had the yellow kit available. So so those two kits kind of hold firm in my memory, and I quite like the Barcelona gold uniform that I did, because at the time that was the only kit that ever outsold the home uniform back in the day, which is just completely unheard of. But it was a really successful away kit for them, so I quite like that as well. But yeah, there's loads that I kind of look back, and it's weird because, when you're in it, you don't really think about it. You're just designing these things, and you're putting them out there. And obviously, I have a bit of a laugh. Doing Sunderland's kits over the years was just a bit of a joke for me, really. But, it was always just good fun because there was great banter at Nike at the time, because one of the senior designers, a guy called Mick Dickinson, he was also one of the designers, and he was a Sunderland fan. So every time he was like doing stuff, I'd be winding him up saying, "It looks shite," and I'd be doing stuff, and he'd be saying, "That looks shite." So it was quite good fun. So there was always quite a lot of banter. But yeah, so when you're in amongst it, you don't really think about it, and you don't think about the magnitude of what these kits have on people and what they do, and it's only over the last kind of 7 or 8 years when football kit collectors and football kits themselves have become so much more popular. And certainly in my own journey, I've had a son and a daughter, and my son's 17 now, so he really appreciates it all. And when he flicks through, it sounds really like I'm bragging, but genuinely speaking, when he flicks through any magazines or history books, or there's something comes up on the TV, you'll be like, "Yeah, my dad did that." And it's pretty amazing being able to look back and think that that's always going to be something that I'll be remembered for. So it's a crazy situation that you're in when you're doing it, because it's just a job. But it's when you reflect, you see the magnitude of what you've actually done.
Absolutely.
Just very quickly, I love the banter with the Sunderland Newcastle. My best friends are Geordie, and honestly, it's non-stop. It's incessant, in fact, at times. But it's interesting to see the advances that have been made with regards to technology and the fabric that's used in this day and age. Because I remember the Charlton playoff final in 1998, and we wore the now infamous, I don't know what colour you describe it as being, but the one adorned with the lampant. Yeah, that's how you describe it, John.
Baby poo yellow.
Baby poo yellow. That's the fella. So anyway, but I remember how heavy that top was, and I remember after the game, a lot of the players commented that it felt like they were wearing chainmail because it was so heavy, because it was such a hot afternoon at Wembley. So it's interesting. It'd be interesting to hear how the technologies come on, fabrics, etc., what goes into it, and then obviously the designs and what have you. Because this is an original from 1991, and it is heavy and it is warm. So when you look at modern day kits, I don't know if it's because I'm a little bit flabbier now, but look at modern day kits, the way they've come on, it's fantastic. So yeah, but yeah, the fabrics and all that, how has that progressed and come on technology wise, with how much research has to be done?
Well, certainly this day and age, there's an awful lot of research goes into it, and it's not just football kits. It's in general when you're making an item of clothing, because you've got a responsibility to make sure that you're not leaving a carbon footprint. So I think a lot of the big brands now are looking at ways of using fabrics and materials and yarns and stuff that are either recyclable or what we call cradle to cradle or grave to grave, or however you want to describe it. But it's basically this idea where you can basically make something and it can just constantly be recycled. And that's the ultimate goal. But the challenge that you've got with football kits is you've got to put sponsor logos on, you put embroideries on them and all the other sorts of things. So it becomes a bit more of a challenge to recycle them. So I think technology it'll take into I would say plant-based technologies. So you'll be looking at like something that's more of a plant-based, like a lyocell, for example, or something along those lines. But the companies are always looking to basically improve the products or improve the technology. And I think what's challenging is when you get to that moment in time where you've got to release that kit, they'll use that technology across a number of different teams, and they'll use it for a number of different years because the amount of time, effort, and money that goes into it, it's quite significant. And I think what I would equate it to nowadays is, I don't know if either of you has played golf, but if you think of like TaylorMade, they'll release a driver. Now, if you listen to the bullshit, you should be able to, technically, if you've been hitting a TaylorMade drive for the last 20 years, you should be able to hit it about 1,000 yards. Because every time they bring a new one out, it's supposedly going to go an extra 20 yards, and it never does. But the reality is the technology will only get to a certain point from a fabric perspective, and then it's basically, what you do with that fabric. So, can you put a nice collar on it? Can you make it super lightweight? Can you make it 2-layer? Can you put mesh in it? So I always look at, when I'm designing stuff, I look at the components as lots of different little elements that when I bring them all together, they make something quite unique. So, fabric's just one bit of the technology that you put into it. But yeah, I would say most of the brands are trying to look at things that are, fine to the environment, but they're always going to be constantly looking for something that gives them a competitive advantage. But I do think it has slowed down somewhat. And when I look at a lot of the kits from Nike and Adidas over the last few years, the fabrics haven't really moved on that much. They've got a wee bit lighter. The knitting construction seems to be a little bit more advanced, but we're kind of been looking at the same thing for quite some time now, I would say.
So just to touch on, Craig, so I was aware of you through the Kit Breakdown YouTube channel. So my mate's a bit of a YouTube fiend, and he'd stumbled across it, and I'm a massive football kit geek, so I started binging a lot of the stuff. How did the Kit Breakdown start? And tell us a bit about Spark Academy.
Yeah, well, that was basically thanks to COVID and me business partner Rob Warner. It was his wife that was chatting to about what we were going to do through COVID, because at the time we had we still do, we have a consultancy business called Spark, and we used to work for lots of different brands. So through COVID, I think we lost 2 if not 3 clients overnight, and they were massive clients. I mean, basically, we're like, holy shit, what we're going to do now? Because basically the money had all been taken off the table, and we're like, right, shit. So what then started happening was Kelly, Rob's wife, had always talked about, well, why don't you sell what you do? You've designed loads of different things over the years. Why don't you kind of put it into like a course, for example? So we started just dicking around with it, to be perfectly honest. And it was just a case of, right, well, we'll get a studio, we'll sit in front of the camera, and we'll tell people how to design football kits. And I guess the reason why I went to football kits was it was the easiest thing for what to do. I mean, I was kind of talking about, we'll do outerwear and we'll do this and we'll do whatever. But because Rob's obviously done loads of kits as well, we just thought, well, it's a natural fit. So that's how it started. And then we just kind of did a little bit of advertisement, put it out there. And the whole premise was trying to find the Ian Wright of like football kit design, the kid that can't afford to go to university, or might currently be a plumber and, doesn't have the chance to go there, but he can do this sort of thing in the background. And it was mental, because that's exactly what happened. We got architects from New York and all sorts of people just coming out of the woodwork, signing up to do the courses. And then the next minute we're putting them in front of the likes of Nike and Hummel. And, these kids have, then had a platform to do it on, and it's just gone from there. So I'm not quite sure what number we're at now, but I think we've got about 300 people that have done the courses, which, we've done it all. We've done it lots of different ways. We'd give it away for free at one point, and then we were starting to charge a minimum amount just to keep the overheads going, really, because every time we'd go into studio, we were you know, we're paying about $5,000 a pop when we're doing like the kit reviews and stuff. So we thought, right, well, we're going to have to charge, at least get our overheads. And that's really what happened when we were in studio doing a lot of the media work for the courses. We would kind of sat around twiddling our thumbs with all these football kits in front of us. So I thought, well, why don't we do a review of them? So we did that, and that just went absolutely mental. And we hadn't realised that there was such a huge community out there of like football kit followers, and so we started doing that, and we really enjoyed doing it. So yeah, we just kept on doing it. And I think our next one is, I think we're actually doing a Dubai special where Rob's over here, and we're going into the studio over here to do the next round. So we've got Euro kits to do and loads of the Premier League kits and obviously the Newcastle kits. And if we manage to find a Sunderland kit, we might try and push that in.
I must admit the counterfeit episode is phenomenal. It was really eye opening, and it was really like, you know, and I'm sorry I bring up this moment, Craig, but that moment where you pick the kit up and you're just like, oh yeah, this is the real one.
Yeah.
And then 2 seconds later, it wasn't. But it just but it just shows you like how sophisticated this stuff's getting. So look, if anyone's listening or watching and is interested, I'm going to put the link to the YouTube channel in the description for this video. And I would definitely recommend the counterfeit episode, and of course the episode where you design a Newcastle United kit from scratch and speak to the likes of Steve Watson and Lee Clark, I think, as well. So it was well, guys from War Flags and all that was really good to see. So moving on to the kits that divide me and Anth, I suppose. Obviously you worked around Sunderland kits a bit when you were working for Nike. You're an avid Newcastle fan. Kind of some of your least favorite kits over from both sides, I suppose, over the last 20, 30 years or so?
I'd probably say the Hummel Sunderland kits were my favourites back in the day. I think as much as, you know, I'm never going to say that I really like a Sunderland kit, but I think if there was any that I would look back on and think, yeah, I thought they were actually quite like a classic design, and I much preferred that badge as well, the crest at that time. So they were probably, I'd say, I mean, if it was like a top 10,000, they'd probably come in at 9,999 or whatever. No, yeah. It was all right, that one. But the Newcastle ones, I mean, yeah, the thing with Newcastle kits, you know, is as we all know, right, whether you're a Sunderland fan, a Newcastle fan, whoever, the kits that really like you fall in love with are the ones that have got nostalgia to them, or you remember something, or you're out with the lads or something. You know, that's what for me always gets it. And over the years, obviously, the one that got me was, I think it was, I'm going to say it was a 1982 kit. And we all went on my first lads holiday. So we're playing football, you know, in Spain and all the rest of it. So those two kits, there was I'm sure it was Umbro kits, and the away one was the green and yellow with like a little kind of grandad colour. And I think, was it Greenhalgh's that was the sponsor at the time? I really can't remember.
Yeah.
So I really quite like them, but I love the NUFC one that Peter Beasley used to don, which is a silver one with a pinstripe. Just absolute classic. And I've got to say, selfishly speaking, the new away kit for Newcastle is absolutely out of this world. So I love that one. I've been lucky enough to work on all that with them. So, but yeah, that and obviously the two Keegan ones, the Grandad Collar shirts, love them. So yeah.
Any that stick out as being horrendous for you? Apart from all Sunderland kits.
Pretty much all. Well, yeah, all of Sunderland's for the entire history of the club. Probably a lot of the goalkeepers' kits used to really annoy us from Newcastle. But I would say the one that I think got a lot of flack, if you like, was I think they call it the custard cream kit now, which is
the banana and custard kit. Yeah.
Is my absolute go-to kit whenever I go to the Dubai Mags football supporters club over here. So I absolutely loved it. Whereas it got a lot of grief. But there's I think a lot of the ones that I would say have been absolute pish are the Castor ones, and it's more because of the quality of them. The designs themselves are okay, they're pretty vanilla. There's nothing that you cannot dislike too much about, but the quality of them is just an absolute car crash. I'm so glad we've got rid of them, and it's nothing disrespectful to the two lads who actually set up Castor, because they've done absolutely phenomenal to get the business going to where it is. But as a football fan, having to buy that stuff, I mean, I never bought a kit for the best part of 4 or 5 years or whatever it's been. I absolutely hate this stuff.
Yeah, you must wonder if they just went too big too fast. And again, that's not to have a go at the lads that set it up, but I think you do wonder, and you look at things like Aston Villa's kit and the issues they've had with the pro kits kind of getting too wet, and I think because of that, and I think they had big issues with the women's team as well, with Villa as well, and having to try and solution something like that. So they have had some challenges, and I'm kind of with you. There's not many of the Castor designs where I turned around and went, I didn't like the look of it, but the quality of it, you could tell there was a bit of a difference. All right, so you're a Geordie working for Nike in the early noughties. You mentioned in passing that you worked on some Sunderland kits. What is your thoughts on the ones that you did design for them?
Well, the funniest story I can tell, which obviously all the Sunderland fans are going to absolutely fucking hate, is even more now. But whenever we were designing them, it was like I say, just a bit of banter between everybody in the studio. But at the time, there were, I think Reg Vardy was their sponsor. So obviously, when you get it onto the laptop, you can take the logos off. So I took the Reg Vardy logo off, and I just got basically a cartoon of a steaming turd, and that was the sponsor that I put on it. And I kept it on. So whenever we were doing internal design reviews to like my boss and his bosses and stuff, we'd have the pictures of all the Sunderland kits up with all these steaming turds on. So by the time we got through the first 5 minutes of banter and laughter, there's me trying to point out the technology that we're putting on the kits and stuff. But sadly for Sunderland, I mean, it sounds horrible what I'm about to say, but it's true. Basically, when you get into some of these big brands, you have top tier, middle tier, and lower tier. And your lower tiers are really your kind of, I don't know, like, you like your lower league teams, like conference leagues, Sunday league teams, that sort of stuff. So Sunderland would, at that time, who were doing well, they were a bit of a Leeds when they were under Nike, they weren't doing too bad. So I think they were in the second tier. So you would basically get a shell of a shirt, and then we would customize it. It was never like, if we were doing Barcelona, we'd go down and meet Louis van Gaal and we'd discuss what fabrics he wants, what color he wanted, and all that sort of stuff. Whereas with Sunderland, we never got into that much detail. We'd basically say, right, these are the 3 silhouettes you can have, and obviously we'll make it like a Sunderland kit. And then the training products, they were always basically what we would give all the team sports teams. So again, we would customize it for them. But at this time, I was thinking, right, well, how do I get black and white in there? I'm going to have to do something to surround up all the Sunderland fans. So I took the black and white training kit and obviously put a little bit of red on it, but it was predominantly black and white. So then I can't remember the chairman at the time.
Murray, possibly?
Could have been. I really can't remember. It was so long ago. And that's the one thing I am shit at, is remembering things. But anyway, so I'd done the home kit, the away kit, and I think they did have a third kit at that time. I can't really remember again. But so we sent them all off, and they're all being presented. And like, oh, Craig, we love the home kit. We think the away kit's really nice, but we've got a little bit of a concern about the training product. It looks a little bit like Newcastle United. I'm like, fucking get in. was my little claim to fame. So, but yeah, other than putting subliminal messages on it, I really had to, again, at the end of the day, it was a job, and you're respectful to all the clubs because, at the end of the day, as much as I'm a Newcastle United fan, I do appreciate Sunderland means everything to those fans. So I wouldn't be doing my job properly if I wasn't taking it seriously. And I genuinely did. And to be fair, I think my boss at the time, who sadly passed away last year, actually, a guy called Phil Dickinson, I'm sure he put us on the Sunderland contract just to wind us up in the first place, to be honest. And I think he then in turn wound up Mick because he wanted to design it and he wasn't allowed to. I was the one who was doing it. But yeah, fond memories. It was good crack. And yeah, the one that I thought was going to get away up until I consulted on the recent Newcastle ones was the Newcastle kits. So, out of all the different clubs I've designed for, I've done, like obviously loads of different ones, Juve, Man United, Arsenal, Barca, Brazil, so loads. And the one that always eluded us was Newcastle United. So to have the chance to consult on it all with them was just, it was absolutely amazing. And it was weird because it was so coincidental because we'd actually started filming doing the episode where I'd gone and spoke all the different players and wore flags and all that. So we'd actually done all of that before we'd actually met up with the guys from Adidas. And when they showed us the kits, I'm like, I can't really name all the people who I work with, but there was one of the lads who works for Adidas. I'm like, dude, you're going to have to look at this. And I've showed him my design. He's like, oh, fuck, when's that going? I was like, well, it's going out fairly early. So when that broke and we did that video, we ended up, we got interviewed by all sorts, the Chronicle, the BBC, Newcastle. I mean, it was great publicity and stuff. But then, the good people of Adidas kind of saw it all and thought, well, what's going on? But we just had to say, look, I've signed an NDA. I couldn't say anything, but this was something that I made very aware to everybody. It was going to go live beforehand. And it's just so coincidental that we've been looking at some of the same visual references or inspiration. But, if you're not doing your job properly, you're not going to be, you'll be turning up with wild designs. I mean, if you're doing your job properly, there's only a certain area that you're going to shop to get inspiration and stuff. So I wasn't so surprised that they weren't too dissimilar.
So how did that come about? I mean, this is the kind of last thing we'll probably talk about and touch on, the Adidas, because as you mentioned that it eluded you and what have you. So how did all of that kind of then come about to get this point where actually you're consulting on the most anticipated Newcastle United kit launch probably ever? Yeah.
Well, it was so we're really good friends with a lot of people at like Nike and Adi, and when you work in the industry, it's quite a tight-knit group of people. So the guy who's one of the top dogs over there happens to be one of mine and Rob's best mates. So obviously when they got the certain jobs and stuff that they want us to kind of consult on, we'll get a call from time to time. But in this case, we were actually down in Manchester for an exhibition, and the guys from Adidas were coming over. So we met up with them, we're chatting away to them, and so then he said, look, would you mind if I talk you through where we're going with a certain football club? And I says, oh yeah, of course. And he couldn't really say too much because they were literally about to jump on a flight the Newcastle mob. So when you see it on the Netflix thing, when you see Staveley actually getting on that plane, I'd basically met with the Adidas crew about 3 or 4 days before that. Right. So they were in Manchester and then had to go back, and then Newcastle had flown over, and that's when you see the video kicking in. So they knew that they were pitching for it. And, it's an absolute no-brainer. It was the only team and the only brand that they could have then went and gone with, because, it's like the coming of home of the two things coming together, isn't it, really? So yeah, so basically that was it. We'd met at an exhibition and they said, look, we've got some ideas. What do you think? So they showed us them, and I said, well, there's a few things that you're missing, and I'd really encourage you to do this and do that. And can you bring this in? Can you bring that in? And again, I can't say too much because I'm signed up with like NDAs and stuff. But there's little elements that you'll see that I've asked them to bring back from the history books, and you can figure that out for yourselves eventually. So if you see the home kit, there's something that we've done on the back neck, which I've encouraged them to do, stuff like that. So my whole thing is, as a club, they've got to look at interest and revenue streams. And what Adidas brings to the table is exactly that. So if you think about when you look at the launch video and the different types of products that have ended up in there, that's basically what's ultimately going to happen. We're going to have completely different revenue streams. So whether it's, you know, Adidas Pro or Adidas Originals or, you know, nostalgic kits or whatever it might be, you know, Adidas are world beaters, you know, so they know exactly how to make it really commercially viable. So from a fan's perspective, you've only got to look at what they've done with the likes of Juve, with Man United. If you think what Man United have just done, that whole Stone Roses collaboration, Arsenal done a collaboration with Maharishi. So there's loads that they're looking at it in a completely different way to what, with the deepest respect, like a Castro could even begin to think about looking at it, because they've got the access. If you think of the portfolios of players and celebrities and all that sort of stuff that, you know, they can just switch on, you know, Sam Fender. And, you know, if you ever went to the St. James's gigs, what was it, nearly a year ago? In fact, I think it was a year ago.
Yeah, it was 9th, wasn't it? 9th and 10th of June last year. Yeah.
You know, there he was decked out in classic Adidas, you know. So again, that was no coincidence. So I think it's all just, it's going to be really encouraging for us. And I think it really is going to be interesting times ahead. And I think we're in safe hands with them now. So yeah, it is. It's great. So it was pretty much a dream come true to be able to just even say that I helped them out on it.
Right, I've got one last question for you, Craig. It's not one I've given you in advance, so I apologise for that.
That's all right.
Cost of football kits. What's your thoughts on this? Because 80 quid for a replica shirt for an adult, or 55 for a kid, which is what the new Newcastle shirts retailing at. Yep. It's starting to feel steep in a cost of living crisis. You're getting 3 shirts that you can pick from every year. There'll be some kids that will want all 3, whether they get all 3 or not, doesn't matter. What's your thought on the cost point? Because it does feel like in the last few years, certainly it's really ramped up, and you start to think, does it need to cost as much as it does? Yeah.
So there's, I'm going to answer this in 2 different ways. So do I think they're too expensive? Actually, no, I don't. And the reason why I say that is we talk about the cost of living crisis, but everybody's being hit by that. You know, the factories that are actually making the products, the material that we're actually using to do it. And then as a Newcastle fan, have a look at the razzmatazz that's been surrounded by the launch of it. That's got to be paid from somewhere, you know. So when you see all these like you know, launch parties and great videos and everything else that goes around it, that's all part and parcel of the price that you're paying. It's not like you're just paying for the kit, you're paying for all the marketing and everything else that goes around it. So I personally don't think it's extortionate. Where I get really upset, and this is probably why I would encourage people to look at it from a different perspective. My issue is the fact that they launch 3 kits every season now and everything else with it. And back in my day, when I was talking about the Invincibles earlier, so that home kit was released and they only went Invincible the season after, when the yellow kit then came in, because what we would do is it was always on rotation. So you get a new home kit, then you get an away kit, but you would only get a new away kit or a new home kit. You never got both of them at the same time. Now it's just an absolute free-for-all. You know, there's kits coming out left, right, and centre. And I think that for me is the issue. So if I ask the question to you in a different way, so if I was to say to you, right, you're going to pay 80 quid for the new home kit, but it's going to last 2 seasons, you wouldn't feel quite as begrudged about it. And
yeah, I agree.
the other thing that irritates me a little bit about it is we never get memories with those kits, you know, because it's like it's over within a season. And yes, okay, if you win an FA Cup or a League Cup or in some cases Champions League, whatever, yeah, you'll remember the kit. But I'd want to wear that kit the following season. It's like it goes into the history books and that's it. It's done. You know, so if you think of the kits that Man City have just played in, you know, all of those kits are going to be changed. You know, and for me, I think that's where it's gone wrong. It's the volume of stuff that we're doing. But if I was truthful about if I was to buy a replica kit versus a pro kit, I'd buy pro kit all day long. You're getting so much more value for your money. I know it's like 120 quid, but it's a far better product than the replica kit. And I think you're getting a lot more value for money by going for the pro kits than the replica kits.
Thank you for answering that. And you're right. There's so much that needs to be paid for, and I don't think that fact's lost on people. But yeah, I think when it's 3 new kits every year, and I think Newcastle have been getting 3 new goalkeeper shirts, and you know, and then new training gear and whatever else. But I've currently got a savings account sat there waiting for all this original stuff to drop whenever that comes, Craig. So thanks for that.
I mean, it is difficult. It is really, really tough, and I totally sympathise with families. You know, if you've got 3 kids and they're all season ticket holders and everything else that goes with it, and yeah, it is really tough, and that's why I think the whole counterfeit things come about, because you know they are so good. The quality of them, they're unbelievable. So I can understand why that whole world has emerged because of the cost of living crisis. But then, yeah, do you need to buy a new kit every season? But then, you know, we'll want a new striker up front, or we'll want a new. That money's got to come from somewhere. So there you go.
Absolutely, Craig. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
No worries.
Everyone for watching, everyone for listening, thank you so much. Please like the video if you liked it. As always, we're available at Northeast Divide on Instagram and X as well, so do check us out there. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
All right, cheers.